An ultimate competition of death in a dystopian future. 100 kids vie for a prize and have to walk until they can't no more, and then they get shot. This is 10 reasons to read Stephen King's The Long Walk. One of the best reasons to read this book is if you are a dystopian fiction fan. This is the true precursor of Hunger Games, as it deals with 100 teenage kids trying to survive for the ultimate prize of whatever they want. Now, it gets pretty dark because, again, it's kids getting shot relentlessly. However, let's give credit where credit is due. It is truly the grandfather of this type of dystopian fiction. It's really cool to see this battle royale style being written so many years before battle royale things were a lot more present now in the 21st century, especially with video games. So this is definitely avant-garde, and when you read it, you realize wow, this is still holding up today, and it's amazing to see this become a cult classic. One of the best reasons to read this book right now in September 2025 is that the movie is just about to come out. That's really fun. It's getting so much publicity. A lot of people are talking about The Long Walk, and you can be one of those people who are like, yeah, I read the book. The book's better than the movie. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. But you could be one of those book snobs, be like, I already know the ending, and then people don't want to know, But yeah, you could be one of those book snobs, and you have the opportunity to do so. And I always like it because you get to compare different things, and you get to really see what you visualize in your head on the silver screen. So that's really, really fun. And I look forward to watching the movie and then comparing the stories. Another plus for The Long Walk is that it's not a long book. It clocks in around 100,000 words, and you can finish the book in a few sittings. It's not a behemoth of a book like It, for example, so you don't have to commit too much time for it. And after a while, you kind of realize that these are one of the shorter books in Stephen King's bibliography. A big strength for The Long Walk is how good Stephen King writes to hook you in at the beginning of the book. His introduction is just so good and quick. You get to it right away, you realize these kids are going to walk, and you're going to realize very soon that they're pretty vulnerable to bullets. So you get hooked up immediately, and then he starts playing you like a fiddle. He's like, is this guy going to die? Is this guy going to die? Nah, actually, yeah, we're going to gun this kid down. So it's fun. And then once the characters realize, they're like, fuck, this is for real, that's when the tone shifts, and that's when you realize these kids are fucked. If you're the sort of reader that likes to think about higher meaning in books, then The Long Walk is a great example of nihilism. Truly, the foundation of this book is you're gonna die, nothing matters, and you might not find your true calling in life. Anything can happen, and you can die at a moment's notice. And I think it's really, really strong as the book progresses and we start getting some character development about why some of these people were around. They kind of took it as a lottery ticket style, and if they did it, if they survived, they won. If not, well, too bad, I took the risk. So, count your days. If you're looking for something that's going to give you dread and fear, look no further. I did not feel comfortable reading this book after a while, realizing that, yeah, these are kids just getting shot. 99 of them, in fact. So you really start developing a bit of a sense of, man, this Richard Bachman guy, he's kind of fucked up. And anytime you go for a walk or a run, if you're in your late 20s, early 30s, all men go for runs for whatever reason, you quickly realize that you keep thinking about this book. And you keep thinking about, I gotta run at a 4-mile-per-hour pace, which, by the way, is slightly unrealistic for all the other things that they do in the book. But regardless, it should be 3, just like in the movie. But we'll get to that eventually in the future. But yeah, you go for a walk, you go for a run, you think about the book, you're like, fuck, man, these guys are walking for a long goddamn distance. They're getting their steps in. So, yeah, anyway. This book really kind of messes with you. I'm not gonna lie. You you're kind of changed after reading this book if you're not bored by it. So a really fun fact about this book is that it was written during the college freshman years of Stephen King when he was 18 years old. You know him now as the master of suspense and horror and an amazing American writer. But this was the OG book that he wrote, despite it being published after a few. So this really gets you into his mind as an 18-year-old, as a fledgling in this space. And you can see how there was so much good quality in his writing and to what he would become today. Funny enough, the inspiration of this book, according to Stephen King, was when he tried to do a 50-mile hike and gave up at the 20-mile mark. And he started hitchhiking, and he was super exhausted, and then took a taxi home. So that's a little fun extra. The next reason to pick up this book is for the people who like open-ended conclusions, where there is some vagueness to the ending, and it's up to the reader to interpret how the ending truly finishes in the book. Now, a lot of people, or at least some, will not like that. However, it is fun to see different theories on what happens in the end, and while that may be really fun for some, it definitely leads to some frustration, and definitely, I think, a polarizing part of the book. But if you do like that, then this book is actually, then you want to read it, because I think it's polarizing. Another reason to read this book is how strong he is at character development. Even at 18, as a freshman in college, you can already see how good he is in the psyche of boys and understanding their attitudes and energy at this age. And despite it being a battle royale style where you just gotta outwalk the people, you can see how during the stories where these boys band together because they realize that they're not all gonna make it. And while you don't think you're gonna get attached to some, there are definitely some characters that are, more important to the story than others. And if you start having an attachment, you're gonna find yourself kind of scarred. You're gonna find yourself pretty sad if your favorite character dies, And I think it's fun that Stephen King, when he's telling the story, he doesn't give you a clue on who's gonna win, because there's some twists and turns in terms of what happens. So it's fun like that. You feel attached to some of these guys, and fundamentally they know that they're kind of in this class of kids that aren't gonna make it. Have you ever been lied to by the synopsis in the back of the book? Now obviously my copy doesn't, but it's sexy Stephen King. And you find out that wow, I read the synopsis, the summary, and it's not at all what the book is about. Well, luckily for you, Stephen King doesn't lie. It's literally a long walk. Once you realize that that's all this book is about, and you're in the grind of just putting one foot forward and hoping to God you don't get a cramp, and then you get shot, then you realize that, this book is exactly what it is. It's perfectly marketed as a long walk. It is monotonous at points, but it is in fact intentional. So I think you should give this book a try.